Julian here with 89.5 FM WSOU. I'm joined here by Alex Kolnick of Testament, Metal Allegiance, and much more. How are we doing?
I'm good, man. How about yourself?
Doing great. Very excited to talk to you. Got a lot of interesting questions. So
Cool.
you've got that show coming up with Metal Allegiance here at the Starland Ballroom. It's sort of like a hometown show. You live in Brooklyn, right?
I live in Brooklyn.
Yeah.
The founder of Metal Allegiance lives in Long Island. That's Mark Mangy. Mike Portnoy is originally from Long Island. So none of us are from New Jersey, but we're from the New York tri-state area, and we've never actually played a show in New Jersey, which is kind of crazy. This will be our first.
No, yeah, that's awesome. It's gonna definitely be a great show. I know you guys have maybe some special guests to unveil during that. I know you guys have released albums. Have you guys done any talking about maybe creating some more new stuff?
There is talk about it. Yeah, it takes a while in between albums because of everybody's schedules. But it has been brought up. I believe there is industry interest, and there seem to be listeners that are discovering Metal Allegiance every year or so. The streaming numbers seem to be growing. So there is a demand, but it's really a matter of schedules. And between myself, I'm on the road more than half of the year with different projects, and now that Mike is back in the Dream Theater camp. His schedule has gotten especially crazy. So it's very schedule dependent, but we believe it'll happen eventually.
Yeah, no, that's great. Definitely looking forward to hearing about that. And you guys have sort of a different writing process than what's been normalized recently. Recently, it's been more like people record their own stuff from like a different end of the world. But you guys like to do everything together in the studio, right?
Yeah, I think we wanted to capture the magic of being in a room together. All of us got started before we had file sharing and home studios, and the it's great, the technology, and being able to record parts at the quality that we're able to do it without being in the studio is amazing. But there is a special something that happens when you're just in the same room bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yeah,
And we really wanted to capture that.
definitely, definitely. And I've seen in a couple other of Metal Allegiance interviews talking about like memorable studio moments. I know when you guys had Randy from Lamb of God in there, he was doing like these crazy vocal warm-ups. Are there any other memorable studio moments that stick out to you?
There's a whole bunch. I mean, part of the fun of that was being in the studio with guys that are in different projects. And usually we wouldn't find ourselves in the same studio. Most of us have extensive recording experience, but it's usually with one main band. And for me to be in the studio with, say, Mark Ostagreda, who is best known for Death Angel, he's currently touring with Kerry King and recorded Kerry King's new record. But I believe being in the studio with him, that was one of his first times outside of Death Angel. So in a way, it sort of set helped set the path that he's on now. And I'm working with him in the studio. I remember, we did a few tracks in which I was making contributions to the vocal melodies and just guiding him and kind of coaching him. I mean, he always sounds great, but just fine tuning it, letting him know what I was hearing. And he was very appreciative, and it was just really cool to work with him one on one in the studio, exchanging information like that. Whereas previously we had just been locked away with our own bands, and here we are in this new situation where we can work together.
Yeah, definitely. And those tracks with him definitely came out great. Are there any Metal Allegiance tracks that you would consider your favorite, ones that you're most proud of?
There are a few actually. I was just on an interview talking about the track with Max Cavalera called Voodoo of the Godsend. And it's both a blessing and a curse because it's one of my favorite songs, but you really need Max to do it live. So we have done it live, and it brought the house down, and it was amazing. But yeah, you need him. So that's definitely a favorite moment. Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of my favorite moments are very hard to recreate live. Another one is Power Drunk Majesty, the two-part title track. And I know we've done parts of it, but it's very difficult, especially the second part, because we had Floor, the singer for Nightwish, who also has a very distinct voice. And we also had my former teacher, Joe Satriani, and we're trading off, and it's just very hard to recreate that. But that was certainly a highlight, as was the part with Max.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. You mentioned Joe Satriani was your teacher. Was this before or after you started with the Testament?
Um, Sort of during. Well, actually, I had already started my guitar lessons with Joe, and I was ready for a serious teacher. You know, I'd had a couple local guys teaching me lessons, and they were in bands and whatever, but I felt like I was ready to go to this next level. And he had this reputation as like the, real guy, like real serious teacher. So I had started studying with him. And during that time, I got the chance to play with Testament for the first time. And he was very helpful with just, helping me build confidence and work towards it. And, trying to get my act together from aspiring guitar player to somebody that's actually playing in venues. And yeah, I think within 2 years, he was ready to give a shot to his recording career. He got an offer to do a couple solo records, and the one he did while I was still his student was called "Not of This Earth," and that was his first one for Relativity. And I think he was going to see how the next record did and debate whether there was time to resume teaching or not. And then the next record was Surfing with the Alien, and then it was off to the races for Joe.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Studying with the alien, very cool. So we heard your favorite Metal Allegiance tracks. Do you have any Testament tracks that you're really proud of that you consider to be your favorite?
There's quite a few, when you do these albums, especially over a long period of time, you don't think about it. You're only focused on the music you're working on. But it's amazing, like, the years go by and you realize, wow, there's quite a bit of material. And I've become a lot more proud of some of the earlier music. We just re-released the first two albums, The Legacy and The New Order. They were remastered, so they sound much better. And we just did a 5-week tour of Europe in which we were playing only songs from those records. And it was really interesting. Some of them we hadn't played in a long time. And the couple tracks that I think were sort of hidden gems in a way of, I don't think I realized how good they were at the time, because when we toured back in the day, back when those records were new, uh, the music gear wasn't as good. PA systems couldn't handle that much overdrive. We would often blow speakers. Speaker cabinets couldn't handle it. So, since then it's totally different. Metal guitar is an established sound. Even in some pop music, there's like that crunchy guitar sound. But that towards the 90s, late 80s and early 90s, that was such a new thing. And it was just really hard to get that sound live. Um, you couldn't really hear what was going on at the concerts. It was just so staticky and it was high energy, but it wasn't clear. Now, the quality is so much better. So when we play some of these earlier songs, you have to really nail it. You have to get every detail in ways you couldn't. It didn't matter as much before because it was just such a wash of noise. So now there's tracks that we're doing that, we're nailing it to the credit of the band. Everybody's nailing it, and it sounds really good. So one of those tracks is called "Do or Die" from the First Testament album. When we play that live, it just goes so many places. It's got that sort of late '80s thrash sound, but it's also very melodic, and it just moves to a lot of cool places. And then another song off the second record, that "Do or Die" is off the first record. Off of the New Order, there's a song called "Day of Reckoning" that I think is definitely kind of underappreciated. We never did a video for it. We probably played it on that tour and then forgot about it. But it's a really cool song, and again, it goes a lot of places, and I think it's just arranged really well and really cool riffs. And when you see us play it now, it's more clear than ever.
Yeah. And speaking of riffs, are there any riffs, either ones that you've written or someone else has written, that just give you an automatic stank face? Like you're like, wow, that is just groovy.
Oh, you have somebody else's riffs that I'm a fan of?
Yeah.
Oh, tons. Um, it's funny. I was just listening to Richie Blackmore, and of course he wrote what's arguably the most iconic riff of all time.
It echoes across
Smoke,
every guitar center in the
yeah,
country.
"Smoke on the Water." But there's a song off the Rainbow album, "Long Live Rock and Roll," and it's "Kill the King," and it's kind of like the Deep Purple riff, but on steroids. Yeah, it's got the qualities of "Smoke on the Water," except it's a lot faster and a lot busier, but just really cool, and it swings. Um, and speaking of swing, I'm a huge fan of Van Halen's riffs. Like, I think even if you took away the solos, I don't think he would have been as famous, but it would still be groundbreaking, and the riffs would still have a huge impact, because it's so rhythmic. Um, the riff for the riff for Mean Street, of course. It's just like, one of the ultimate riffs of all time.
Yeah.
And gosh, I mean, there's so many. But I'm a fan of more modern riffs as well. Uh, Rammstein, I think, has some incredible riffs.
Have you seen them live by chance?
I have, yeah,
Incredible.
yeah. It's game changing. Yeah, it's just an incredible experience. I think the song is called "Sensucht."
Yeah, yeah. I
The
love that
word is right. It's got this amazing, very simple riff, but you just can't keep still when you hear it.
definitely. And you mentioned modern stuff. Are there any like up and coming bands like the past 10, 15 years that you're a real big fan of?
There's a ton. Yeah, there's many. Um, I really like how Black Dahlia Murder has managed to. They've been around a long time now, so that's kind of weird to say they're a new band, but 20 years. Well, yeah, when you've been around for 30 years, that still feels like a new band.
Yeah,
So I think they really got it together in there after 10 years or so. And just the way they've managed to come out, just brutal, extreme metal, but it's just so well played. Everybody plays their asses off. So they're really good. I'm a big fan of Gojira.
oh
I think they've sort of reinvented things. I'm super inspired by their performance on the Olympics, and hearing them and uh, Marie, the opera singer, together, I thought worked really well.
yeah, definitely. That was incredible.
Yeah, she's a metal fan, I'm told, as well. Uh, Yeah, so I mean, yeah, there's I'm trying to think of anybody else. Dillinger Escape Plan is not exactly a new band, but yeah, I like that they just had a completely different approach.
Yeah,
Suga as well.
definitely. Sweet. So I know you revisited the Legacy and the New Order with that tour in Europe. Phenomenal albums. And then the last two that you guys put out, The Testament, Brotherhood of the Snake, and Titans of Creation, amazing albums. How do you keep those creative juices flowing after all these years? Do you take any new approaches in your writing, or do you just use your tried and true methods?
I think it's changed over the years. I think, yeah, there was a period, well, the period before I joined the band, Eric, who's the band's founder, the other guitar, but he was the main writer. And then you can kind of hear the difference between the earliest songs like Raging Waters and Curse of the Legions of Death. And then right when I joined the band, you have songs like The Haunting and Apocalyptic City and all the harmonies. It started getting really melodic. And the next few records, you hear that. And then I was out of the band for most of the 90s and the 2000s. And Eric really, yeah, by then he really knew how to do harmonies better. So he became more of the main writer. So when I came back, we have some stuff where we collaborate like the old days, but there are a couple records like Brotherhood of the Snake where he wanted to be the main writer. But this new one, we have more collaborations. Titans of Creation, there's a couple collaborations and even a couple songs I wrote most of myself, like Code of Hammurabi and Symptoms. But I'm really excited about this new one because it's got some of Eric writing like he did when I wasn't in the band, but it's also got um, parts that I'm the main writer and then parts that we really worked on and shaped together. So it depends. But I think why it sounds fresh still. I think the band was always hungry. The band it never it's doing better now than ever before. We're doing the best shows and great, really good festival spots. But for a long time, I think we were sort of underdogs and we never really had a chance to shine in some ways. We never really figured out how to produce the records. They did eventually. I mean, in the 2000s, the drumming got better, the production got better, but that was after that initial period of the band where you're making that first impression. So in that first wave of the band, we never got to the point that some of the other bands did. Like everybody knows who Megadeth is and Slayer is, and they've had Grammy nominations and Grammy wins in some cases. Uh, yeah, we never certain doors never opened for the band. So there's always been that feeling of something to prove. So when we reunited and the last 10, 15 years, kind of came back, we said, it wasn't a matter of questioning whether we could recapture the old magic. It was more like, okay, we can let's do it, but let's get it right. Let's do it better than we ever did it. And that's the attitude. And I think that informs every new release.
Yeah, definitely. And would you be able to tell us when to expect new material from Testament?
Yeah, it's in the works. It's more than halfway done. Songs are all written, drums are recorded. Um, other rhythm guitars are partially recorded. Bass needs to be recorded. Lead guitars I'm working on. I still need to do them as final tracks, but I'm in the midst of working on them. But it'll definitely be turned in before the end of the year, and it'll definitely be available next year.
Nice. And I know you took a little bit of time away from Testament. You've had other projects, a little bit of time in Trans-Siberian Orchestra, Alex Kolnick Trio. And I saw a fun fact that you actually produced music for the Westminster Dog Show, and I think it was 2002. Are there any other side projects, things you did during that time that people might not know about?
Um, yeah, well, the dog show thing just came up by accident. And it's kind of a long story, but that was fun. Um, I'm working now on music for a film that's going to come out next year. That's sort of a horror black comedy called Traction Park Massacre. Uh, yeah, Adam Dubin, who's done a lot of music videos, including some Metallica videos and Beastie Boys videos. He's part of the team behind the creative team behind that. Um, so that's, and I've often dabbled with things like that, but this will be a high profile soundtrack. Um, yeah, my trio is more of like an instrumental guitar trio. You might call it jazz guitar, although it covers a lot of bases besides jazz. And we have a new recording that's coming out. It'll also come out next year, probably in the spring. And I'm also playing in a an instrumental group called Pact, and it's a sort of a progressive rock group, sort of jazz rock. And we're actually squeezing in a tour next week before I get busy with the next Testament tour, and that's going to take place. That's going to go down the East Coast, and the bass player in that, his name's Percy Jones. He was in a group called Brand X, that was a pioneering jazz fusion group in the '70s, and he's kind of a legend in that world, and he's known for sort of redefining the fretless bass. So that's been a lot of fun. We've actually done several releases. It's improvised experimental music, but the guys in the band are so good, like everybody has to play at the top of their game. And that's exciting. So that tour is coming up. And then the Metal Allegiance show, and then I'm actually playing the next day in with that same group Packed also in New Jersey on the 7th.
Oh, nice.
So
Which
it's
one
going
is
to
that?
be that's in Rutherford, New Jersey. So
Gotcha.
it's going to be a busy time period.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Metal Allegiance, you've worked with so many musicians over your career. Metal Allegiance itself is a supergroup. Are there any supergroups that have been out there that you're inspired by, like historically? Like I know there's Cream, Temple of the Dog, bands like that.
Yeah, I mean Temple of the Dog was a great band. I mean, just every song was good. Those incredibly unique voices,
Yeah,
great grooves, great. Yeah, I just wish they'd made more music.
yeah, definitely. That one album was insane.
Yeah, and also it's funny, the group with Sammy Hagar and Neil Sean. I mean, that was a super group. Uh, HSAS with Hagar, Sean, Aronson, and Shreve. Right, Shreve was the drummer for Santana, and that was also really good. I don't think they did much music. Um, but this supergroup thing, it doesn't always work. I
Yeah,
don't want to mention any names, but there are a few I can think of where I get really excited when I see the names involved, and then I hear it, and it's not that exciting.
yeah. And are there any like realistic collaborations that you're hoping you could secure one day
You're talking about for Metal
for
Legion?
Metal Allegiance? Yeah,
I mean, we've gotten a great number of collaborators. Um, you know, it's hard to say. Like the ones that I could think of don't really do collaborations. They're they're so big.
Right.
Like obviously, yeah, James Hetfield, for example, would be a great example. It'd be great to have him sing on a song, but good luck. He's very busy, and I know, yeah, I know once in a while he'll do something like he did something for Heart, which I thought was great because it's something you don't expect him to do. Um, but yeah, so far, I mean, we've been able to reach out to and collaborate with most of the people that were on our wish list.
Yeah, no, that's cool. And Mark Mengy actually said the same thing, hoping to secure James Hetfield. So hopefully that happens one day.
Yeah, the dream guest.
Yeah, and if you could
We'll
put
lobby him.
yeah, and if you could put together like your own supergroup for anybody living or dead, who would it be? Me personally, I would choose Danny Carey of Tool, Dimebag Darrell on guitar, Les Claypool on bass, and then Riley Gale power trip on vocals.
Oh, that would be interesting. Well, I think Danny and Les have done something, if I'm not mistaken.
I
Uh,
wouldn't doubt it. They're always intermingled, Primus and
but I think one of Les Claypool's projects had Danny on drums.
I'll definitely have to look into that. He's got a whole lot of stuff he's done.
But yeah, no, that's a good one. Oh, and I would say that the upcoming group that's doing all the King Crimson 80s music.
Oh yeah, that's
Like
great.
if I could put together a super group, that's that's a super group right there. Tony Levin, Adrian Belew, Steve Vai, and Danny Carey.
Yeah, definitely, that's incredible.
But if I could put musicians that aren't around anymore, I'd probably pick Miles Davis, uh John Bonham, Jaco Pastorius, and Jimi Hendrix.
Yeah, awesome. That would definitely sound pretty cool. So looking back on your whole musical journey, it's been a long one. What do you think you would consider your most triumphant moment to be? Something that you're most proud of, something that you think about pretty often?
Oh gosh. Yeah, it's right. You don't I tend to, not to think about what's happened and more like what's coming up. I would say one if I guess if you a triumphant moment you could think of it this way is a few years ago when the great guitarist Alan Holdsworth passed away. I was part of this collective that paid tribute to him, and it was actually supposed to be a show that he was going to play in New York, and instead, they kept the show, and it was with his band, but they picked four guitar players, and they did this in New York, and they did it in L.A., and they had different guitar players for each coast. But I was part of the New York Alan Holdsworth tribute, and playing his music is just next level. Nobody could play exactly like him. He's, one of the most unique, groundbreaking musicians of all time. But just to be able to do that, and not only his musicians, but his family members were there. A lot of the jazz and guitar press was there, and it went over really well. It was probably the hardest I've worked on anything, that I can think of recently. But a friend of mine told me that that's like winning a Grammy.
Yeah, definitely. It's great to pay tribute that way. And if I'm not mistaken, Metal Allegiance was the house band at Lemmy's funeral, isn't that right?
That's true. Yeah. Yeah.
And you
That
guys
was
picked,
another good moment.
yeah.
And also after Metal Allegiance played in Chicago a few years ago, we attended the Chicago Bulls NBA game, and I played the national anthem at the game. And
Oh wow.
I've been reminded of that a lot this week because the Democratic Convention is going on in the same place, the United Center.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so that was also a really cool experience.
Yeah, definitely. And this question actually comes from a listener, a guitarist friend of mine. He wants to know, why did you guys choose to cover "Nobody's Fault" by Aerosmith with
Oh,
Testament?
it's it's funny. Well, a couple reasons. You know, we were very big fans of Aerosmith, especially early Aerosmith, before they reunited and had all the more pop sounding hits. And that song has always, sort of sounded like it could be, a real heavy song. So
Yeah.
it was sort of an experiment just to see if it worked. And so I think we were already playing it just for fun, but we also needed more material for the record. It was the second record, and it had to be written a lot faster than the first record. The first record there'd been all this time, as the band, all the music from the band's club days, but all of a sudden you have to do another record and you have to come up with an album, and we were a little short on material, so doing a cover was a way to add more material to the album.
No, yeah, that's really cool. And if you had to do another cover, Testament style, with Chuck on vocals, what would it be?
Oh gosh. We've talked about it. Yeah, there's a few different ideas. Um, I don't know if they would agree to this, but I heard a song by Bjork a while back that I thought would sound great. It would make a great metal song, and I think if we don't do it, somebody's going to do it. So I'm not going to say what song it is, but
No, yeah, it's really cool. Would be
oh,
fun.
I'll just say it. It's called "Declare Independence."
Oh, nice. I love it
Yeah.
when they take something that's completely distinct from metal and they add metal twist to it. Usually sounds great.
Yeah, I find that more interesting,
Yeah,
actually,
for sure. Love that.
when it's a song that you don't associate with a certain genre of music, and it's done in a different way.
And things have changed since the pandemic, that big break from live music. People are have come back and they have a little more of an appreciation for it. Do you think there's a real noticeable change in the world of metal today?
I think so. I mean, I think after the pandemic, there was much more appreciation for live music because suddenly it was off limits, and it wasn't safe to be in a room with a group of people. And I'm sure we all figured it would come back eventually, but there was a period of more than a half a year, right, where you just didn't know what was going to happen. So I think now uh, it's much more appreciated than it was back then.
Yeah, for sure. And do you think releasing music is a lot more different, maybe more difficult now? The way things are received, where it's like streaming, content creation, likes and shares, as opposed to record sales.
I think it's gotten more complicated. You're now more dependent on live music and doing the live shows and getting guarantees from promoters and selling merchandise. Uh, you know, Selling records really isn't a thing anymore. Streaming is a thing, but if you can get enough listeners and get enough folks coming to the concerts, then you can uh, survive and sometimes make a pretty good living at it. But it's just a completely different business structure than it used to be.
Yeah, for sure. And you've been touring hard for a long period. Is there any like pre-show rituals that you have that you do pretty much before every gig?
I'm usually locked away two hours before a show, and I don't want to see the outside world. I don't want to be I don't want to have any interactions with the outside world. And yeah, I just I basically practice the things that I practice on my instrument regularly, whether or not it's part of the gig. Usually not what's in the gig because I want that to be fresh. And what I practice is usually more jazz guitar focused or international improvisation, whatever. I have some type of practice and I'm very focused on it. And I just try to uh, reach some new levels with my practicing. And that gets me warmed up. It gets me excited for the show. And I usually need at least a couple hours before. So
Yeah,
it is sort of like a ritual, but everybody I know has different rituals.
right. And is there any place that you visited while on tour that is like memorable to you? A place you might have had an off day that you did something interesting?
I mean, many memorable places. Just on this last tour, I was in Greece, which was always exciting. No matter how many times I visit the Acropolis, I'm pretty amazed by it. I always like going to Japan, because it just feels like this whole other part of the world that is so different from the West. And this last fall, we got to go to some Asian places that we didn't get to go before. Um, Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur, and Indonesia. So yeah, I love going to places like that and kind of soaking in the culture.
Oh, yeah, that's awesome. Definitely cool to see all those places bring them metal.
Mhm.
What can you tell fans and what can you tell them to expect from this upcoming Metal Legion show here in Jersey?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great time. With Metal Allegiance, everybody has fun. People are chosen for it not just by how well they play their instruments, but how well they can uh, enjoy the process. If it's not fun, there's no point in it, no matter how good anybody plays. So everybody has fun. There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of making fun of each other. It's also a unique lineup. I don't think we've ever had this exact combination of players. Some newer generation guys like Dave from Revocation, and then guys like Mark from Accept and John Bush. The veterans, guys that are kind of in between, like myself. And we've never played in New Jersey, as hard as that is to believe. So it'll be the first time.
Yeah, definitely. I think the last time you played Jersey might have been with the Bay Strikes Back tour. I think that was at that same
That's
event.
probably right. Yep. Yeah,
Yeah,
2022. Yeah.
yeah, I wasn't lucky enough to get out to that, but I heard it was a rager from everyone who went. We're out of time, but I really appreciate you taking this time to talk with me. A lot of awesome stuff, and I'm really looking forward to that Metal Legion show. Should be
Oh,
great.
thanks, man. All right, we'll see you there.
All right. Thanks for
Thanks.
talking, man. Have
You
a great
too.
one.
All right, take care. Bye.